So Discount Tuesday is when I catch up on some movies that I don't particularly want to see but want to review for this channel. So on Tuesday I saw Rings and The Space Between Us. And it definitely looked like nobody wanted to see Rings because I got to see it all to myself in the theater. I love it when that happens because it feels like it's my own private screening to a movie. Then again, it was the first showing of the day, so if people wanted to see Rings, they would probably see it in the evening. Well, I couldn't because I've got the third shift right now. Hopefully this is the last week I have the third shift. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about Rings. So, Rings is the third movie of this now trilogy or franchise, whatever you want to call it now. And essentially it is kind of the same, but at the same time tries to throw a little bit of different stuff in there. Also tries to be a little bit more modern. Now if you've seen the trailers for Rings, the movie starts off with that plane sequence in the trailer. You know, where a guy's got a little bit of time left, it's his last day because she kills you in 7 days, and then all of a sudden she hacks into all of the TV screens within the plane, and the plane looks like it goes down. That whole sequence is the first part of the movie. And my light just went out. Well, right after that plane sequence, which has very little to do with the movie whatsoever, 2 years later a professor goes to a garage sale which is selling all that kid's stuff. Yeah, the guy in the plane who dies. All his stuff is being sold. He's the one who watched the tape, and guess what? The professor buys a VHS player. The professor, played by Johnny Galecki, I hope that's how I pronounce his last name. He buys this VHS player, starts fixing it up, and lo and behold, finds a tape inside it. The tape, of course, being the tape that if you watch it, you're gonna die in 7 days. And he watches it. Jump forward in time a little bit more, and finally we get our main characters. Anyway, the boyfriend goes off to college, and then suddenly he goes missing, or she cannot get into contact with him. He tries getting a hold of him, trying to stay in touch. He just goes off the grid. And so now our main girl goes to search for a boyfriend and uncovers this sort of crazy thing where this professor, the professor who bought the VHS player, is starting an extracurricular program where they're studying the tape and having people watch it, and it's almost like a cult, but it's an experiment. And the boyfriend is part of that experiment. And so now our main girl gets involved with this, she sees the tape, and she goes through the experiences that pretty much our other characters in our other films, where she's trying to find a way to solve this, try to find a way to appease the spirit rather than just copy a tape and give it to someone else and have that be someone else's problem. And so after that it kind of plays like the other two films. From what I remember from the other two films, because I really like the other two films, but I don't remember that much about them, to be honest. Maybe I'll have different opinions if I saw them again. So anyway, Rings, a lot of people feel it's terrible, it's complete garbage, it's a rape of my childhood sort of deal. Personally, I do find it a bad film for sure, but I don't think it's as bad as some of the other films I've seen so far this year, or even other horror films in the last couple of years. It's not that bad, I feel. It's pretty meh, to be honest. I mean, there ultimately are things that I like about the film. For one, I do like this whole experiment thing, maybe cult-like scenario. I like Johnny Galecki's character where he's this professor trying to study the tape, giving it to other people, they're experimenting with it, they're watching the tape, they're trying to discover proof of afterlife, of spirits. Honestly, I think that whole concept was actually pretty neat and entertaining and different from the other movies. Honestly, I think they could have made a whole movie revolved around that and around Johnny Galecki's character. I mean, let's think about it. Johnny Galecki finds a tape, it's the whole ring situation, it's the tape that's going to kill him in 7 days. He starts experiencing things, realizing there's afterlife. He's a biology teacher, which I guess that's fine. He somehow discovers that copying the tape and giving it to someone else saves his life and he's no longer gonna die in 7 days. And he gets a bunch of college students, they see the tape, they're experimenting, they're seeing how far they can go before the 7 days, before they have to give it to someone else. Try to record all their experiences, all the things, the freaky stuff that are happening to them. And despite the precautions they take, maybe something goes wrong and he starts realizing he's done a really terrible thing and spread it even further than it should have. Like a virus. I don't know, there's something in there that maybe could have revolved and made a better film than what we got. I'd rather see his story than the characters that we follow. Now bear in mind there are some really dumb decisions that are made even within this storyline, because even though they have precautions, they're very laid back about it. They're like, oh yeah, we'll get someone to watch the tape for you, or they copy their tape in the last minute. It's like, okay, watch the video, make a copy right away, have backup plans of other people that can see it, and maybe you'd be still alive. So yeah, there are some dumb decisions definitely made within this section of the movie, within this subplot. And if you don't really think this is an interesting concept for rings, then you'll probably think that's laughable and hate it and not like the movie at all. Because honestly, that's the only interesting thing I found about the movie. Personally, everything else about the movie is the same as the other ones, just done way worse and not as scary. Now, I'd probably say a lot of this in my horror movie reviews, but things just don't scare me that much anymore. I've been desensitized by horror films because I've seen so many, and so I don't judge a movie off of scares alone. And if you go into this movie thinking, okay, I want to be scared, that's all I want from a horror film, you're probably going to come out of this movie really, really disappointed. But then again, it's really hard for me to judge horror because not only is it a subjective thing, but I've been so desensitized by it. I will say there's one thing in this entire film that creeped me out, and it's mainly because it's gross and made me cringe and look away from the film. And it's already done in the trailer, so it's really nothing new, but every time I see that trailer, I still look away because it involves hair, okay? I just think hair is pretty gross when done in horror movies, and the way they use hair usually is just cringeworthy for me, and it's the only thing that creeps me out and grosses me out. And the one that was creative and really just got under my skin, literally, was when she peeled away her skin on her hand and there was hair underneath, almost like veins. That was creepy to me, okay? Unfortunately, it was given away already in the trailer, so when I actually saw it in the movie, I was like, okay, I was prepared for it, I knew what was going to happen, but it still kind of made me have to look away. I could deal with her pulling hair out of her throat and mouth, but when it came to that skin and it was under her skin, it was like, oh God. Everything else, completely boring when it comes to the scares. Not even the creepy images of the tape were creepy to me anymore because they show it so many times within this movie that it felt like, okay, we've seen it before, okay, we've seen it before within this movie, alright, you're showing it again, okay, fine. Is that all you got to try to scare us? Because it's getting old really fast. So overall, the only good things about this movie for me is the one creep out moment and the one subplot that could be interesting and made into an entire movie itself. For one, the two main characters, the couples, they really weren't characters at all, and just there was nothing to them that made me care about them in the slightest. As far as acting-wise goes for these two characters, I think the boyfriend was okay, but his character was so bland and I didn't care about it that I didn't really look at his acting quality whatsoever. Now there is one really bad line delivery within this movie from him, but honestly it's a line of dialogue that I don't think anyone can deliver in any sort of quality. He's trying to get information from this innkeeper, and so he's trying to do small talk to try to coax her into giving him more information about a very sensitive subject matter for the innkeeper. And so she orders country fried steak at this diner, and he's looking at it, and he goes, "So what is it? Chicken or steak?" Oh God. I probably delivered that line better than him. It was terrible. And it was meant to be awkward because he's trying to do small talk, coax her into giving him information about something in the past. But it just still really didn't sound that good at all. And if you want to know, this guy is from The Fifth Wave. He's better in this movie than The Fifth Wave, but then again, his character is really bland, so I don't care about him at all. But the one I really don't care about at all is our main girl, our main character. I don't even remember her name, to be honest. If anyone was the worst actor or actress in this film, it was her, and unfortunately she is the main character. Now, she was not as bad as the girl from Bye Bye Man, but I have there's brief moments in this movie where she reminded me of the actress from the Bye Bye Man, with the very one-dimensional facial expressions, to the awkward moments where she's supposed to be scared and it just looks forced and weird and awkward, and to the moments where she has line delivery with a sort of accent or done in a really weird way. So I was like, is this another person from another country trying to do an American accent? And turns out, I looked it up, she is from Italy, so I guess there is something there. I guess that makes sense why some of the line deliveries are a little weird. Just like the Bye Bye Man, she was British. And she had a little bit of British accent every so often in the Bye Bye Man, when she was supposed to be an American. Now, very similar for the first Ring, which, from what I can remember, because I don't remember too much about the other two films, it does become a bit of a mystery where you're learning more about the evil spirit's backstory, and the character is trying to appease it rather than make a copy and give it to someone else and have it their problem. And it covers the same sort of grounds, and it becomes a point where you're thinking, look, we already know she's not going to be appeased. We already know that she's still going to kill people anyway. She's a Japanese spirit, or based off of Japanese spirits. And Japanese spirits in horror movies that I've seen, they don't care whether you appease to them, whether you apologize to them, or anything. They're just going to kill you, and that's it. So it becomes a point where you're already realizing, alright, they're not going to succeed. Freaking light. Apparently my light bulb does not want me to do this movie review. It hates it too. So as they're doing this mystery, you feel like it is pointless. And not only that, when they're dealing with something where they're trying to search the history of some other character rather than the character that is the spirit that is killing people, it felt pointless because you're thinking, how is this going to connect to this, and how is it going to connect to the girl in the well? Well, it eventually does, and gives more backstory to the spirit, and you know it's going to connect, but you're just waiting for that connection, and it doesn't feel like it's connected until it finally connects. What I also didn't like about this film is you don't really know what day it is and how many days she has left. She has 7 days to live, right? She has 7 days to get this done. In the other movies, it emphasized it, and you knew from the progression of the hauntings and from the days that go by, you know how many days they have left. In this movie, I had no idea how many days took place until the final end of the movie. Because the level of the scares and the level of the hallucinations that our spirit gives our main girl, there's no progression to it. It's pretty similar throughout, and sometimes there's barely any hallucinations whatsoever. It's more like signs, because, get this, okay, she gets to see the tape, but when she copies her tape, and it's all digital, suddenly there's more space in her copy. There's more footage in her copy. And so her footage is these non-scary things whatsoever that eventually lead up to signs and images and premonitions that will lead her into the mystery that'll help her solve the mystery that is where this spirit came from and how to free the body and free her spirit. I think they could have made those images creepier while still feeling like premonitions. They don't feel like they did that whatsoever in this movie. There are some really bad, hilarious moments, such as when they're driving down the highway and a bird hits the windshield, and she's like, there's a bird, and they stop. There's no crack in the window. She's like, there's a bird hit us. She's like, I didn't see any bird, we didn't hit anything. And then she runs out of the car in the rain on the highway, goes out down the side of the road, goes, look, a bird, I saw it, and it's this bad CG bird. Yeah, there is some bad CG in this movie with the bird and the cicadas. Anyway, we're talking about the bad CG bird for now. She's like, look, it's there, and the guy's like, there's nothing there. No, it's there, look. And then she walks out into the highway, it's like, there, and this truck is coming, and he pulls her out of the way. It's like, Julia! Oh, now I remember her name, because he screams it twice in this movie, the same way. He's like, Julia! And then pulls her away, and she almost gets hit by a truck. It's a lot funnier than how I explained it. But as I recall, I'm like, yeah, her name is definitely Julia, because he screams it twice the same way. Almost like they had it recorded him scream it once, and then they just copied it to the next scene that he screams it. Where he pulls her out of the way again, this time by a falling, what's those called? Now, something that would really help this film, and something that this film really needs based on the plot points of the film, there really needed to be a chemistry and a romance between these two characters. Because without that romance, without us believing they are a legitimate couple, it doesn't work why she ends up sacrificing her life for him. That's right, she sacrifices her life for him in this movie, and it's an unbelievable relationship. We don't get enough of them to feel, oh yeah, they're a good couple, oh they have good romance, oh they have good chemistry, I believe them. They don't flesh that out in any sort of way, and so when she sacrifices her life for him, you're thinking, wow, that was stupid. Now before I say that, before you think, oh, how did you spoil the movie? It's not spoiling the movie, because this is how it happens. He has 1 day left, well, less than a day left, to live. And they're waiting for someone else to watch the tape. He already has a copy of it and on his computer, because it's all digital. And not wanting to lose him, she's like, okay, I'm going to watch his copy of the tape. That way he survives, and now I have 7 days. That's the self-sacrifice I'm talking about. And so, because we don't have that relationship fleshed out, it just sort of feels like a stupid decision that she made. Especially when she went around thinking that he was cheating on her. You know what? A lot of this movie could have been solved if this freaking boyfriend answered his phone and kept his phone on him. Because there are 2 or 3 moments in this film where people die because he did not answer his phone. You know how they deal with romance in this film? Kind of like how I expect Twilight deals with its romance. And how, oh, there's an it must be in his contract, because it was in The Fifth Wave where he had to be shirtless. Well, he's randomly shirtless in this movie too. Like there's this one point, he's about to go off to college, this is towards the beginning of the movie, they're talking to each other. She's like, I'm gonna miss you and stuff. He's like, oh, hang on. Takes off his shirt, gives it to her. There, now you have something to remember it by, or a scent, or something like that. And then he walks off, and even his father, or I assume it's his father driving him to college, looks at him and is like, why is your shirt off? Even though Rings has the same premise as Ring, pretty much the same plot, it doesn't feel like a Ring movie for the majority of the film. Honestly, it feels like a mixture of Ring meets Final Destination meets Don't Breathe at the end of the film. Yeah, the last part of the film feels like Don't Breathe. Now, I'm not going to knock too many points off of Rings for this, because this is the marketing issue. The trailer for this film gives away the twist. In this movie, there's a great importance to this mark that she gets on her hand, which is very different from everyone else after she watched the tape. There's an importance on the mark on her hand, and it's supposed to be a twist on the meaning of that mark. There's one point where Johnny Galecki is like, okay, this actually looks like Braille. I mean, he doesn't tell it to her, doesn't tell it to the boyfriend, because at this point they have separated. The couple have gone off on their own adventure, and Johnny Galecki is looking at the research, is like, hey, this kind of looks like Braille. Looks up the meaning, is like, I know what this meaning is. And it's like, tries to call the boyfriend. Yeah, big mistake, because he doesn't answer his phone. Didn't even have his phone. He's like, hey, I'm going to meet you guys. If you get this message, her hand is Braille, this marking is Braille, it means something. I'm going to meet you right now. And of course that isn't really that successful, which I won't go into details, but why it's not successful. But then finally, by the end of the movie, you find out the meaning, and it's like, oh, great. We already knew that from the trailer, and because we knew that from the trailer, we know exactly what the Spirit's plan is all along.
What does she want from me?
This mark on your hand, it says rebirth.
So if you don't catch that meaning from that trailer clip, then you're lucky, because it's pretty obvious, I feel. And when it comes to that twist, there's one thing I'm going to knock off, because I feel like this one scene that Johnny Galecki has where he's like, oh, it's Braille, I gotta call him. That whole scene, I think, could have been etched out of the film entirely. I think people, an audience, are smart enough to realize that without that scene, it would have been completely fine, because after that scene, we have our blind guy who's, yeah, famous person. He touches, is like, oh, there's a mark on your hand. She's like, yeah. He's like, oh. It doesn't say that it's Braille, it doesn't say its meaning, but you would get a hint that, hey, he knows something more about that mark. Then after that, Johnny Galecki shows up and something bad happens. He's not able to tell them the true meaning of the hand, and that it's Braille, but he motions to her hand and he's touching it to show, hey, emphasize there's meaning to it in some way. And then we have that scene at the end, the whole twist, and when the boyfriend is typing up what it means and finds out what it means, then it's like, holy crap. I think that Johnny Galecki scene where he calls them is completely fine if it was etched out, and the whole meaning would have been even better if we also didn't have the trailer that revealed it. Look, I'm not going to argue Rings is a pretty bad film, but I feel there is potential in the subplot, and I didn't have an ultra terrible time watching it. I definitely wasn't scared throughout the film, but I wasn't completely bored either. So I feel Rings is a bad film, but not bad enough to contend with some of the other worst films of the year contenders. So I'm ultimately going to give Rings 2 stars. So did you see Rings? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews. I've got movie reviews of 2015, 2016, and hopefully some more of 2017. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.